Welcome back, folks. I'm Jake Ellenbogen, and today we are going to be talking about Jaxson Dart. I know a lot of Rams fans want him, so I'm going to give my thoughts on him. I'm going to give you my breakdown, the scouting report, how I feel about him, whether or not he makes sense for the Rams, and where I would draft him, and I'll also give you a player comparison. Before I dive into that, though, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Also, be sure to follow me on all social media at JKBogan, including Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and Kick. As always, so anyway, Jaxson Dart, Ole Miss quarterback, played 3 years at Ole Miss after transferring from USC. He transferred from USC because of a player by the name of Caleb Williams. I don't know if you ever heard of him before, but it did lead to him transferring, which is a good thing. It worked out for both parties. Jaxson Dart, 6'2", 225 pounds listed. This is a 21-year-old, he'll be 22 this year. And, he finished college with a 64.7 completion percentage, 72 touchdowns, 24 interceptions, and 105.4 passer rating to add to his 1,825 rushing yards on 310 carries and 12 touchdowns. In 2025, PFF graded him as the number 2 quarterback, number 4 passing grade, 6th in big-time throws, and he was second among all quarterbacks in terms of passer rating. He was actually only responsible for 12.8% of his pressures, which is a really, really good number for him. So let's get into it. What does he bring to the table? What are the pros? Well, to start off, he's very mobile. This is a guy that, I've heard he's not mobile. I've seen that on Twitter. I just don't get that. I mean, you might not like him, but he is mobile. He is a scrambling threat. We still watch Baker Mayfield scramble. It's not like he has breakneck speed or anything like that, but he's still able to get away in the NFL, move the chains. And that's something I think Jaxson Dart will be able to do. And I think that will help him transition to the next level, because I always say, you can make it hard. Trust me, being a mobile quarterback in the NFL, you can put yourself in harm's way. You can make it more difficult playing that style. But here's the deal. When you are cautious and you're smart about how you use your legs, you can use that to make your job easier. When you use your legs, that creates a dynamic and basically an attention taken away from your arm. Now they have to respect your legs. Once they start respecting your legs, you're not going to start to see as many blitzing. You're going to start to see a little bit more guys playing back more, and you're going to start to see, especially if you take off enough, you'll see that quarterback spy. Now, that's the thing that I'll add there, but he's calm, he's cool, he's collected within the pocket, outside the pocket. That's one thing that I really like. Not a lot of quarterbacks going into, the NFL, coming out of college, have that on their tape. I mean, this guy just always seems in control. I mean, even if he's not, even when he's not, he doesn't let you know it. The body language just tells me that this guy is just like really even keel, and that's a good thing. His pocket presence, he has it. He's not afraid to step up and set up his throw in the pocket. So, I do like that. This is the guy that wants to throw from the pocket. He's not trying just to run it every time. So that's something to keep in mind. He can shed tackles. He can keep the play alive. He made double-digit guys miss tackles this year. So that's kind of who he is. He's still going to be able to slip tackles and, keep plays going, whether he's going to extend the play and throw the ball or he's going to take off and run it. In the more rare chances, and I'll get more into this, but in the more rare chances he had to go through, full field progressions, he showed the ability to do so. I'm not saying you want him necessarily to do that right out the gate, but I did see it. It's not evident a ton. You go back and you look at some of the quarterbacks in years past, Ole Miss, it's that program that, you kind of gets hit with that, like, okay, one read style offense, you're one shot and just throw it type deal. But he can go through his progressions when needed. He just doesn't normally have to, because a lot of those throws are set up by Kiffin. But the projection to me with Jaxson Dart is a potential starting quarterback at the next level. That might take some time. I don't think it's right out the gate, but I do think he can be a franchise quarterback at the next level, or at least a starting quarterback at the next level. He's a real leader. He has a good mental makeup. So that's something that's important. A lot of experience playing this position and playing it against some of the best competition in the world. That is an important thing here, and I think that's going to keep NFL teams really engaged and really interested in what Jaxson Dart has to offer, because when you look, he's going up against the Alabamas, he's going up against the Georgias, the Floridas, what have you. And so that's something that is important to a lot of people. The NFL, and I don't know if you've paid attention to this or noticed it, obviously now that, you have the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl and all of that, it's gotten better about it. But since COVID, since that, big pause in the action, teams have really relied on drafting those Power 5 schools. You don't see as many gambles as you used to on small school talent, early in the draft. So that's the thing. In a world where, at least in my opinion, it feels like the league has put more of a premium on drafting Power 5 conference guys. I think that bodes well for Jaxson Dart. He's really good in the intermediate game, which normally I say short and intermediate. I think just the intermediate. I see, we're going to get into this, but I see people talk about his pro day and people talk about, his highlights. I don't look at highlights. I've seen them pop up on, Twitter and what have you. But I do like watching the full all 22. I want to see what the field looks like. I want to see, where he's going, what he's deciding in that moment. Not really a fan of highlights because it only shows you the good. It doesn't really show you the bad. And it's not that I'm a negative person, need to see the bad. But if I'm marrying, this player, and that's essentially what these organizations do for at least 4 years, you're committing, this marriage. And it's like, if you're going to spend this asset on this type of player, then you have to know what you're getting yourself into. If you just look at highlights, you're only going to know that they're good at this, but then when they're bad at something, it's going to be a shock to you. So that's something there, is that, I think when you look at the highlights and stuff from, people have sent it to me or it's on Twitter or whatever, people will talk about his deep ball. I don't think it's as consistent. We'll get into that a little bit later, but his intermediate game is really good. And he doesn't have quite the arm where, I was trying to find a comparison for him, and I'll get into this, but he doesn't have like a whip. It doesn't really come out with like a ton of velocity. I think it's more, it sails a little bit, not in a bad way. It's just, he doesn't have that like zip, like frozen rope. But he could still make those intermediate throws, and it's evident. And, the last thing I'll say, as far as the pros, you're talking about a guy that's gotten better each year. Okay. Each year, this guy has gotten better, and that's a good sign. As far as his cons, and there are quite a few, I'm a little bit more pickier on quarterbacks, because if I'm going to address the quarterback spot in the first round, regardless if I'm the Rams or any team, I want elite traits. But if I don't get elite traits, then I need to know this, and this is checked. So let's talk about the cons. Average arm strength. Okay, I understand some people will disagree with me on this. That's fine. At the college level, this is how you have to apply it. At the college level, it's a good arm. At the NFL level, it becomes average. We see plenty of guys like this. Kyle Lauletta, out of Richmond, great example. I thought his arm was totally fine. But over the course of time, as I've watched more and more tape, as I've watched, and scouted more and more players, I've seen patterns. I've seen where I've been wrong. I see where I've been right. And where I've been wrong is that I don't put enough emphasis on, just because that arm looks good at the college level, it's not going to translate to the NFL the same way. But I just look at the tape and I'm like, oh yeah, it looks great. I'm trying to get better at that. So, this year, looking at Jaxson Dart, I see an average arm at the NFL level. That doesn't mean he can't improve it. He can improve on his wrist action, like I've said before. It is something that can be improved. So I don't want to just ding him for that. I'm just telling you, those are some of the weaker things in his game. He doesn't really use his eyes or throw at the anticipation, of like some of the other quarterbacks in this draft. So that is, a little bit concerning. I think his footwork needs improvement, just because he's calm, cool, collected, and, he's got, nice feet when he wants to use them. It doesn't mean that his footwork doesn't need improvement. This is a guy that needs to step into throws more. He's leaving a lot left, a lot of meat left on that bone, by not stepping into his throws and by not having the full, motion going into his throws. So that's a big deal. The deep ball accuracy is inconsistent. He can make a nice, deep ball throw And he makes a lot of nice throws. He doesn't wow me, though. Like, when I'm watching some of the other guys, like, I think there's some serious, like, holy hell, that was a crazy throw type of stuff that you get from, like, a Cam Ward, my only first-round quarterback in this draft, in my opinion. So, not that I'm saying other quarterbacks won't go in the first round, but I'm saying he's the only one I would take in the first round. So, that's the point there. But the decision-making has to improve. He does live to play another down most of the time, but he still will have a tendency to force it. And again, you look at the stats and you're like, this guy's taking care of the football. He hasn't thrown too many interceptions. Be that as it may, a lot of those were dropped. They were close to being interceptions at the NFL level when everyone's faster, stronger, and smarter. They will be picked. So, he has to improve on that. Again, you have to kind of match it up. If this is good in college, it's going to be average in the NFL. If this is great in college, it'll be good in the NFL. If it's elite in college, it's great in the NFL, and so forth. So you're very rarely going to have an elite everything. Like, elite traits aren't going to just translate instantaneously to the NFL. There's normally going to be a little bit of a drop-off. So that's something to say there. He hasn't worked under center much. That is a con, but it's not as much of a... I wouldn't put as much of a premium on it as years past, because we're starting to see quarterbacks that have never worked under center. They've been predominantly in the shotgun. And because of all the, collegiate concepts that are, influencing the NFL game, they feel right at home. So, that's what I'll say about that. Ole Miss scheme was really quarterback friendly, in my opinion. I had the same thing with the quarterback that came out, whose name is totally escaping me, went to the Panthers. I'm blanking on his name. But when I was watching him, I liked him, but I kept just seeing, like, everything's kind of there. Like, he knows where he's going pre-snap. It's pretty easy. Stick it, hit the throw, all of that. So, yeah, that's something that I consider. A lot of quick hitters, one look type, throws just baked in. He doesn't have any elite traits, in my opinion. It doesn't mean that he's a bad prospect. It's just, I'm not getting anything elite. I'm not getting elite speed. I'm not getting elite arm. I'm not getting elite accuracy. And then he has an elongated throwing, motion / mechanics. And on that, I've always kind of fought back against that, because there are people that act like throwing motions don't get fixed. And I'll explain exactly where I'm going with this. But going into my player comp is actually Will Grier. And I know some people are going to turn their head away because they think player comp means this is his ceiling. This is what I believe he's going to be. That's not true. Will Grier was a third-round pick in 2019. I actually really liked his game at West Virginia, 100th overall. Jaxson Dart, he's a quarterback in this draft that has basically seen all the college game has to offer. Really good situational football player, can get out, can run, knows when to throw the ball away most of the time, and is what is required of him, right? So I think NFL teams are going to be really interested in it, just because he's seen a lot of football. He's seen a lot of different players, and he's dealt with a lot of different coverages and talents. And I think teams are going to be interested in that. With Will Grier, he's somebody that came from Florida, just like how Dart came from USC, transferred to Ole Miss. He came from Florida, and then he transferred to West Virginia. He started 2 seasons there. I think Grier and Dart are just very similar. You watch Grier, he improved his throwing mechanics in the NFL to the point where you wouldn't really notice it. But at West Virginia, he had a longer, slower throwing motion, kind of similar to what Dart has, which might be the slowest of all the quarterbacks in this draft. I just think Dart and Grier, both fun players. If you watch just pure highlights of them, you can really get into them and be like, wow, like they could be really good. But when you dive deep into the All-22, you get a little bit more grounded perspective. Again, good prospects with flaws and red flags. Grier ended up being, a third-round pick, like I mentioned, and that's like the type of quarterback I see Jaxson Dart being. That does not mean that Jaxson Dart can't be better than Will Grier, or he can't be anything special. That's not what it means. But as of right now, I'm comparing him to Will Grier coming out of West Virginia, and I had a third-round grade on him. I liked Will Grier, right? I think the big thing about comps is that we get so focused on the here and the now, who you're most comfortable with. And I don't like to force comps. I'm doing it this time because a lot of people ask me, I didn't do it much last year. So I'm spending more time going back, watching old film and guys that I like kind of circled and I liked. And Will Grier was just somebody that came to mind. It's not an insult. I think Grier is actually a pretty solid developmental, quarterback. I mean, he's 29 now, but I think he's pretty solid. I think he's got some traits, and I think he could start a game in a pinch if you needed him to in the NFL. It didn't work out necessarily as a franchise quarterback, but he still is in the NFL. He's on the Dallas Cowboys. As far as Dart, I see him as a great fit for the Rams. Here's the thing. I just don't see him at 26 at all. I think the Rams could be justified to take him on day 2. Should he fall into the 3rd round? Absolutely. Via trade, maybe draft him in the 2nd round. I'm not as high on that, but I could understand it. However, I just don't get the 1st round hype. I don't. I know he's likely to go there. He'll probably get drafted by the Seahawks or the Jets or somebody like that, but I love the guy. When I first, was really watching his tape, I was watching Trey Harris, and he just really started standing out to me. Obviously, he was the guy throwing the ball to Trey Harris, but he was a 3rd rounder through and through for me. A guy that you feel really hyped out about when you get him at the end of day 2. But now, all of a sudden, he's a 1st rounder. He might go top 50. That is way too rich for my blood, and it's very simple. I said this on the NFC West Roundtable. I'll say it now. If I go to the store and I like this one brand and I keep spending money on this one brand, and then one day they just raise the price out the wazoo to the point where it's just not even affordable anymore and the other brand is not that bad and I can just get the other brand that doesn't cost as much, I'm going to get the other brand. I'm not going to spend, a 50% upcharge on a brand just because I've had, that's been the thing that I liked. Well, no, now it's way too overpriced, and now I'll just move on to the next one. And that is how I would describe Jaxson Dart. If he is going to go in the 1st round, as much as I like the guy, I don't think he's a fit for the Rams as a 1st round pick. I think he's a fit for the Rams in the 2nd, 3rd, later. He's not going later, but I don't see the 1st round hype at all. I see a guy that doesn't have any elite traits, which I think is a big concern if you're drafting a guy in the 1st round, especially quarterback. I don't see a guy that is going to be able to start right away. And again, the Rams wouldn't need him to. But if I'm drafting a quarterback in the 1st round, he's got to have immense upside. He's got to have elite traits, or he's got to be able to start right away. And I just don't see any of those things. I see decent upside to potentially be a franchise quarterback, but that's more me giving Sean McVay credit. That's more me giving the credit of the situation of Jaxson Dart sitting behind a Matthew Stafford and Jimmy Garoppolo. That's what I would say. So he's got the experience, legitimate potential to be a franchise quarterback. I still don't get the 1st round hype. I just don't. My thing here is that if the Rams take anybody at 26, I think I'm going to have an issue with it. If they take any quarterback at 26, I'm going to be bothered by it. Because I just think drafting a quarterback 3 in a season where you're all in and you're trying to win, well, I don't want to call them all in, but you're trying to win a Super Bowl in a limited window before Stafford retires, and you kind of penny pinched. Like, let's be honest here, the Cooper Kupp thing, Matthew Stafford taking a pay cut, all these different things that were out there. Like, to do all that and then take a quarterback like Jaxson Dart at 26 would just be insane to me. So again, I like him a lot. It's nothing against him. It's the same thing with Loveland. I like the player. I don't like the idea of drafting him in the 1st round. I'm a big fan of getting the best value. I think that's how you win drafts. It's very simple. If you draft a guy 1st overall, okay, and you draft a guy at 33rd, well, the difference between 1st overall and 33rd is that basically you could say that the 1st overall pick is worth 5 second-round picks based on just history, right? The value that a 1st round pick offers, the 1st overall pick offers, is worth 5 second-round picks. So then you have the 26th pick, and people get so caught up in, oh, well, we're getting close to the end of the 1st, so like now it's okay to reach on a 2nd rounder. I guess, but like, if you don't have to, don't. And also when you pick at 26 and then your next pick is at 90, I'm sorry, I'm trying to trade down. So that's just how I feel. I like Dart as a player. I like him as a prospect. I think he's going to work out in this league, whether he is, one of the better backups in football or he ends up being a pretty solid starter. I don't see him being elite because he doesn't have any elite traits. But I think in Sean McVay's offense, let's just say he gets a chance to be the starter and they draft him and he sits behind Stafford and Jimmy Garoppolo. I could see him being like Jared Goff in Sean McVay's offense. I could see him absolutely being a product of the system where, and I don't want to take anything away from Goff in that sense because he was a first overall pick. But the point is, I think he could produce like that. I think he could give you a 2017 season like Goff had, right? I think that's possible, but there has to be a lot from here and now. There has to be a lot of development. He is not a finished product, not even close. Just because he started a lot of games in the SEC doesn't make him a finished product because a lot of those things, look at the guys that have started at some of these bigger programs and they've never even touched a football in the NFL. That's an important thing here. So again, college and the NFL are different. He has good college film. He doesn't have great college film and he doesn't have elite college film. So that's not a guy I'm trying to draft in the first round. That said, Jaxson Dart absolutely is a fit schematically. I think he'd offer, he's a little bit more mobile. I would say definitely more mobile than Matthew Stafford. So that offers something there. But yeah, I would sign off on Jaxson Dart as a Ram, just attaching or detaching the draft pick status and all of that. But no, I would not take him in the first round. I think that would be an absolute mistake. And I don't think that they should feel like they have to take this guy because there are other guys that you could get for better value. But Jaxson Dart, good prospect, has a chance to be a starter someday and has some things that I really like. I just have a little bit too many concerns to draft him in the first round. That's simple. So let me know what you guys think about this prospect. Do you think the Rams should bite the bullet, draft him at 26? Do you think they should trade down, get him in the second, get him in the third, get him later? Do you think he'll even be there? Do you think this is Malik Willis 2.0, where Malik Willis was talked about going top 10 pretty much the majority of the draft, and then he didn't go into the round 3? Let me know. I know, sometimes teams like to just lie. Actually, a lot. So I guess we'll find out. My guess is Jaxson Dart is going to go to the Seattle Seahawks in the first round. I just have this feeling he's going to go there, and yeah, that's how I feel. But anyway, appreciate you guys. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you guys soon. Later, folks. All right, guys. So once again, just want to let you guys know that you can check out my new side project, The Lounge. I interview athletes, musicians, actors, actresses, all the nine. So definitely check it out over on the Lounge with Jake Ellenbogen channel. Be sure to subscribe and enjoy. In case you guys haven't noticed, I do have a Discord channel for my community on this channel. And if you want to be a part of it, it is free. The link is in the description below. You can sign up. This is basically a 24/7 Rams channel, and we are almost at 1,100 members. So if you want to be a part of it, just hit the link in the description below.